Force India. On the face of it, one of those quite good midfield teams, but there's a lot more to them than that. If you go back far enough through their history, you end up getting to the Jordan team. And Jordan had their ups and downs, but for a while they were a force to be reckoned with. They amassed 4 race wins in their time in the sport, which is 4 more than Force India. 10th, 9th, 7th, 6th, 5th and most recently 4th in the Constructors' Championship. They improve year on year on year and always punch above their weight. Now in 2017 and Formula 1 has a bit of a makeover, as well as a change in rules. Wider tyres, more downforce, higher speeds. Forget the Mercedes dominance because it's all been thrown up in the air. A new dawn brings a new opportunity for everyone. So could Force India, who have always impressed those up and down the paddock, capitalise on the new rules and bring home a win for the team? Or maybe, just maybe, something even greater. Right then guys, it's PSL here, and I'm here for the first episode in my Force India career mode on F1 2017, where we're going to try and make Force India a championship winning team. That's the intention anyway, but the team, they've got good foundations, good drivers of course, in Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon. However, we're going to be replacing Ocon and having Perez as our teammate because, well, we just saw the real life Belgian Grand Prix, and it's probably best to separate Ocon and Perez, and when push comes to shove, Perez is probably the slightly better driver. If you've played the game, seen any video on the game, chances are you've seen this cutscene, so we all know what Emma's all about. She's our agent, she's going to be trying to get us better contract offers, but considering I want to stay with Force India for this entire career mode, all she can really do is just try and make me the first driver. But anyway, we've done the practice programs, which again, I am sure you have seen by now because I'm pretty much the last F1 YouTuber to have made a career mode episode. I'd rather just get one out slightly later but make it a higher quality. That's what I'd rather do. There's no point rushing anything out. And here we go, Chris. I said this at the start of my F1 2016 career mode and I'll say it at the start of this one. This is Chris and he's going to be my best friend in this career mode because he's going to be the one who's going to be producing the upgrades, and really he is just the guy who is going to be making the Force India car better. So Chris, he's talking to us, and of course he's going to get a phone call any second now to tell him that a part which they were developing has failed. So that's fantastic. So already things are going wrong in the Force India team, but it doesn't matter. I have stepped into the Force India team and we're going to be applying some upgrades, improving the car and hopefully making it compete with the Red Bull Mercedes or Ferrari. And of course we've got the R&D tree. Now I press recommend upgrade and it wants us to upgrade our aerodynamic package, which isn't too surprising because as you saw there, we've got the 3rd worst aerodynamic package. Also, it's told us, oh no, probably we should improve our durability. That's what I've just done. I've just improved our durability. All of our parts on the car degrade by 10% less, which it's the best value for money upgrade in the game, in my opinion. Now, I'm not buying any upgrades. I'm spending resource points though on making the parts cheaper. I've done 2 of the 5 phases. Each of those phases, you spend a load of resource points and it makes every aerodynamic upgrade 10% cheaper. So I've just spent money to make all the parts 20% cheaper. I've run the numbers and it is definitely cheaper to pay for the discounts and then to buy all the parts at a discounted rate, because you can make all the parts in the game half price, and it's cheaper to make the parts half price and pay for the discount than it is to pay for all the parts at full price. So basically, we're not going to have any upgrades for a while because I'm paying for discounts. So we're going to be standing still for a while, but once all the discounts are in place, we're going to be doing fine. We're going to be, putting all the upgrades on very quickly because they'll be half price. Anyway, here we are in qualifying, and of course, McLaren Honda are not doing very well. Fernando Alonso, he's not got the speed, he's not got the speed trap, 17th at the moment in qualifying. Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber, and Sauber, they're just, of course, they haven't got any pace. They've got a 1-year-old Ferrari engine, so of course they're not going to have any pace. So in Q1, it looks like McLaren and Sauber are going to be eliminated. Jolyon Palmer was someone else who definitely looked like he was on the bubble. He's 15th at the moment in the dying few seconds of qualifying. 15th, and if someone else improves, then he could be knocked out, including Carlos Sainz. He's in 16th at the moment, and he is someone who you definitely wouldn't expect to be eliminated. So if he improves, Palmer could well be out, but of course both of those guys are on flying laps. And in fact, both of them did improve. It's both McLaren's and Sauber's in the drop zone, but Danny Kvyat, the other Toro Rosso, was eliminated. Sergio Perez very lucky to stay in. Daniel Ricciardo saved a set of Ultra Softs. But yes, Kvyat was the shock elimination there. But anyway, into Q2 I've set a lap which is the slowest at the moment. The slowest of the 7 runners. Magnussen's quicker and Carlos Sainz just blocking my attempts to do a second flying lap. Then you got Romain Grosjean, who at the moment is in 13th place. And Haas, they're not looking too quick at the moment. Magnussen was the next guy. Quickest after me. Grosjean currently is in the drop zone. Quick in the speed trap. 6th quickest in the speed trap. So he's got the raw speed, including Sergio Perez. The Force India car, we've got, you know, the aerodynamics is the 3rd worst aerodynamics on the grid, but there's nothing wrong with our engine power. And in fact, the lack of aerodynamics, the lack of drag is helping our engine power. That's why Sergio Perez was the quickest in the speed trap, but only 12th quickest overall. Palmer, both Force Indias, Grosjean, and of course inevitably Sainz was eliminated. So basically both Force Indias and Grosjean joined those who struggled to make it through to Q2. Then you got Hamilton on pole position. Kimi Raikkonen took 2nd from Bottas in 3rd. Sebastian Vettel disappointingly down in 4th. Then you got both Red Bulls on the 3rd row, both Williams on the 4th row, and they're the team we got to watch out for. Hulkenberg's in 9th and Magnussen is in 10th. Williams, the team we got to watch out for. They have got a quicker car according to this game, but we're very evenly matched. And for both of those guys to be on the 4th row, and when, I mean, Perez is 12th and I'm 13th, really we've got to be comparing ourselves to Williams, because they're a very similar team, and Renault are a similar pace, but Williams is the same sort of privateer team, Mercedes engine, lack of aerodynamics. It's a very similar team to Force India, but as you may notice, it's raining. The lack of aerodynamics, the lack of downforce is not going to help us out here. It does plan to dry out by the end, but it's going to be the first half of the race, more than the first half, is going to be raining. So it's a one-stop strategy for today's race. So we're all going to start out on the intermediate tyres. Sergio Perez there in 12th. Jolyon Palmer just up ahead in 11th. So qualifying wasn't particularly great for both Force India drivers, but we didn't massively underperform. The fact of the matter is me and Perez, our times were very similar, so at least in the eyes of the team, I'm not massively underperforming compared to their number 1 driver, Sergio Perez. But anyway, the lights are lighting up for the 2017 Australian Grand Prix, and it is underway. Lewis Hamilton leading from the front, but of course Kimi Raikkonen is still there alongside, and of course in the championship battle it is firmly going to be between Ferrari and Mercedes. But Lewis Hamilton going around the first corner is still leading. I'm side by side with Sergio Perez, still behind Palmer, still behind the Haas of Romain Grosjean, and Kevin Magnussen. We're behind both Haas drivers actually, and side by side with my teammate Sergio Perez, and we're going to outbrake him, and so close to hitting the back of that Haas there, but we've just about been able to get past him. Accidental overtakes, we were more avoiding a collision, but we were able to overtake a couple of people there, including Jolyon Palmer, so we're now splitting the 2 Renault drivers already up into a points place. So we've done the first couple of corners. Lewis Hamilton, you will have seen, pulled out quite a sizable gap from Kimi Raikkonen already. But of course we've still got 29 laps left to go. Lewis Hamilton could so easily lose the lead. I mean, Ferrari and Mercedes, they're very close. It's not like previous years where Mercedes, they would just pull off into the distance. Ferrari are close. They are very close. And in fact, Nico Hulkenberg tried to get past him there, but he's been able to get back on. He's been able to get back past us, of course. The Renault struggles in power, but in downforce terms, it's much better. So, of course, it's in the rain, it's a much better car, to be honest, arguably so anyway. But we've been able to just about get past Nico Hulkenberg. One thing I will say, if you haven't played this game before, if you still are yet to play it, obviously we know in real life F1 the cars are wider. You notice that playing this game. It is so apparent because overtakes are a lot more difficult, especially at a street track like this, just because the cars are wider. Never mind the fact that the slipstream effect and DRS effect are reduced. The fact the cars are wider makes overtaking more difficult, and of course Lance Stroll saw us coming, thankfully, left us a space. Lance Stroll, of course, a rookie in Formula 1, still only 18 years old. So we got two rookies here, two teenage rookies. I've just passed Lance Stroll. I'm only 19. In fact, I'm only about 2 months older than Lance Stroll. But we're going to have another look at this move. Very clean racing from the two teenagers, which is something I'm sure you wouldn't expect to hear. It's a bit of an oxymoron. Clean and teenagers. Doesn't really work. But anyway, Lance Stroll been able to get past him. More importantly, that is a Force India passing a Mercedes, which in the Constructors' Championship in the long run could be important, because really our aim is to finish 4th in the Constructors' Championship, at the very least 5th. You may notice I pulled out ahead of Lance Stroll by quite a bit. I'm, what, 4.2 seconds behind Massa, but was that 3.5 seconds ahead of Lance Stroll. Massa was definitely the quicker Williams driver, as evidenced by the fact that it's lap 9, and I can't catch up to Massa, but I'm slightly pulling away from Stroll. So really, it's quite a boring mid part of the race. Of course, there was no DRS, so overtakes were very difficult to pull off, and of course, it's wet conditions, it's slippery, overtaking is treacherous. A couple of people have come to the pits, which is very early. Lewis Hamilton has come to the pits, he's rejoined ahead of me, and that means that he's committed to doing a 2-stop. Because if you're doing a 1-stop, you'd be pitting on lap 14, lap 15, he's pitting on lap 10. So anyway, we've got Lance Stroll, who's also coming to the pits. He's definitely doing a 2-stop because he is pitted very early, much like Lewis Hamilton. And whoa! That was a collision, I believe, with a McLaren Stoffel Van Dorn. Lance Stroll was just exiting the pit lane, and instantly he has had a collision with Van Dorn. Let's have a look at this. On board from Van Dorn. So Stroll's coming out of the pits on the right-hand side, and the problem was, it was just a lack of spatial awareness from Van Dorn. He could see Lance Stroll was there. Sure, Stroll, he did lock up on the brakes, which didn't help matters, but at the same time, Van Dorn definitely turned in there. So that has damaged both of their cars there, and well, really, things are just not going well for Williams at the moment. Certainly for Lance Stroll. Valtteri Bottas is coming to the pits. He is another one of the drivers to definitely be doing a 2-stop. Definitely, unless they assume that the rain is going to stop. I mean, let's assume the track dries up lap 20, and they're pitting halfway into that. In which case, that's very clever. They're getting a massive undercut on those who are just staying rigid to the 1-stop strategy. In which case, this could be clever. It honestly depends on when the track dries out. Valtteri Bottas, he's been able to overtake me, but that's hardly surprising. Quicker car, more downforce, better driver, more experienced driver, newer intermediate tyres. Of course, he's long gone. So, at the moment, that means we are in 7th place. Sergio Perez is in 8th. He has stayed out, much like myself. Lance Stroll is miles behind because he had to come into the pits again because the damage sustained to his car. He had to come into the pits, so he has stopped twice already. Massa, importantly, is behind us. Both Ferraris haven't pitted yet, so Mercedes and Ferrari are doing different strategies. Mercedes have come in on lap 10, maybe trying to get an undercut, whereas Ferrari are hoping that is going to stay wetter for longer. Sebastian Vettel, here we are about lap 14 into the race. He's coming into the pits, of course, for a second set of intermediates, which means at this moment in time, the Mercedes, they've got the undercut, because, well, it honestly depends. They've got the undercut. Mercedes, they should rejoin ahead at this point, because they've had 4 laps on newer intermediate tyres. They're definitely going to get past Vettel, and of course Daniel Ricciardo at this point, and there we go, both Mercedes streaming on by. So, this has worked out for Mercedes at the moment, but that honestly depends on when the track dries out, because now, of course, Ricciardo and Vettel, they've now got the advantage with newer, fresher, less worn tyres. And in fact, Daniel Ricciardo coming out of the pits, side by side with Daniel Ricciardo, he's had to go cautious in these wet conditions, and we've been able to pass Daniel Ricciardo for 6th place. But look at our tyres, 56% worn. No wonder the likes of Ricciardo, Vettel, Raikkonen, no wonder they were coming into the pits. So if we look, everyone has pitted at least once, apart from myself, Perez, Force India were doing a different strategy, and Pascal Wehrlein in the Sauber. Everyone else has pitted once, apart from Lance Stroll, who I believe has pitted twice due to damage. And here we are with Lewis Hamilton, who obviously is in a good position with the tyres at the moment. As I said, it depends when the track dries out, but he's going very slowly. He's pulling off to the side of the track. Lewis Hamilton is retiring from the Australian Grand Prix. Well, that is a shock. Lewis Hamilton. This is not going to do him any good in the championship battle further on down the line. Because, I mean, this is points that both Ferrari drivers are going to be scoring, and he's not. He's scored none this race. And here we got the Jolyon Palmer train. Now, you know, people are going to be mocking Jolyon Palmer, of course. However, I do want to say, on the team radio, they said that Palmer had an issue. His car was slow. It still doesn't take away from the fact that he's holding up a train. To be fair, I think the train was formed by Pascal Wehrlein, who hadn't stopped yet. But Palmer, he's in a quicker car and he hasn't been able to pull away from any of those guys. So Palmer, it's a combination of being stuck up behind Wehrlein. I mean, his teammate was pulling away from him. So Palmer definitely going slower than his teammate, but he did have a car issue. Valtteri Bottas, he's coming to the pits for a second set of intermediate tyres. The advantage he had on the Ferrari drivers has gone. So Mercedes, their race is really derailing. They pitted too early. That's the problem. They pitted on lap 10. And the track still hasn't dried out. It's amazing because the rain stopped ages ago. And and to be honest, it's not just Mercedes. I haven't stopped at all. Mercedes have stopped twice. We haven't stopped at all yet. And honestly, I'm coming into the pits this lap. Ricciardo wasn't able to get by. Purely because, well, there's no DRS, of course, in these wet conditions. And the lack of power. Really, honestly, Ricciardo could not get by despite the fact he was miles quicker. Sergio Perez was quicker. That's why he was behind me. Felipe Massa was quicker, but of course, he's got much newer tyres. And we're fitting on the super softs. Suicidal. The track is close to dry, but not quite dry. But you saw the tyres. They were, I believe at this point, 86% worn. If we did another 2-3 laps, they would have punctured. So we had to come in. It was now or never. I had to come into the pits, and there's no point coming in for intermediate tyres. We may as well come out on dry tyres. But look, it's too wet. We've made a mistake, potentially. Felipe Massa, he came into the pits just then. Same time as me, he is out on the intermediate tyres. And here's the real test. Force India versus Williams. And Williams, they're winning. I mean, Massa's long gone. And of course, he's got newer tyres, so he's going to be catching up to Perez at a rapid rate. Because Perez, I can only assume, as kind as he is to his tyres, they're going to be about 86% worn. And remember, he was just behind Ricciardo. And Ricciardo's coming into the pits. And Perez, you could just about see him off in the distance. That tells you how worn Perez's tyres were as well. But Ricciardo's fitting on the Ultra Softs. Right, so clearly they've seen my pace, which, to be fair, was improving. This is a couple of laps later. It was improving, but clearly they've seen my pace and have thought, right, it's time for the dries. Sergio Perez has done this, which means that both Force India drivers, we're going to successfully pull off a one-stop strategy. Everyone else has fitted at least another set of intermediate tyres. But there you go. I'm in 7th place. I'm still ahead of Felipe Massa. Of course, Ricciardo's jumped me, but the very fact that Ricciardo was behind me for several laps is, well, I mean, it was just a lack of DRS, really. I mean, Ricciardo shouldn't have been behind me, but we have destroyed this race. Sergio Perez has come out ahead of me, but that's not too surprising. He's definitely been the quicker driver all weekend. And here we are with Carlos Sainz, a man who is not contending for the points. He's battling with Nico Hülkenberg and he's off the track. Now, to be honest, Carlos Sainz, I do not know what happened. I don't know whether it was something with the brake-by-wire system or whether it was something more physical, a more mechanical component. I don't really know, but he locked up under braking, and this is later on, once he eventually got moving, and yeah, it's the same thing again. He's locked up on the brakes, going very slowly. There's definitely a braking issue. He came into the pits a couple of laps later, fitted on the dry tyres like everyone else, and that didn't stop the problem. Because I remember I passed Carlos Sainz, he was about here. The problem is he's stopping to let everyone through, and yeah, I mean, I overtook, well, I lapped Carlos Sainz. He was parked on the side of the track by the gravel traps, so Carlos Sainz, I do not know what kind of issues he had, but definitely it was nothing to do with the tyres or the wet track conditions, because the track it's drying at this point. It's not fully dry, but it's certainly dry tyre conditions, and you can tell it's dry tyre conditions because we're getting overtaking. That is Nico Hülkenberg who's passed, but he's locked up under brakes trying to pass the Sauber, and there's been a collision. That's a Red Bull. I believe that's Daniel Ricciardo, who has had a massive collision with Hülkenberg. Both cars are still left running, but this is important. Daniel Ricciardo, he's in 6th place, or 5th, I believe, actually. Yes, because Lewis Hamilton's retired, he's in 5th place. Let's have a look at this. So Hülkenberg locked up and just rejoined the track. That was just That was so avoidable for both of them. I mean, Hulkenberg maybe shouldn't have rejoined the track like that, but at the same time, Ricciardo could have braked out of it and steered out of it, but he didn't. And as you can see, Daniel Ricciardo, the front wing damage he sustained there, he's had to come into the pits. I'm in 7th place, but Ricciardo's in the pits. He was on the ultra soft tyres, he was in the quicker car, he was long gone. But because of that collision, that means that Perez in the Force India is up into 5th, I'm up into 6th, Felipe Massa, sure, he's gained a place as well, he's in 7th, but we've got track position on Felipe Massa. I mean, he's had to stop twice this race. Both Force India drivers, we've only had to stop once. But Kimi Raikkonen, I mean, it was helped massively by the fact that Lewis Hamilton retired. And Kimi Raikkonen, he's going to win the 2017 Australian Grand Prix. Unchallenged. There's no one else even close to him. Vettel was stuck up behind Bottas. Bottas did a strategy which backfired on Mercedes because the track didn't dry up quickly enough. Same issue for me, but to be honest, Force India, we were definitely able to recover it. Force India, the only team, me and Perez, the only two drivers to do a one-stop strategy, and it has certainly worked. Perez has finished 5th, and me, on my debut race for Force India, I finished 6th. We beaten Felipe Massa, he's in 7th. Lance Stroll had that collision with Van Dorn much earlier on in the race. He's, well, out of the points. Last time I looked, he was in 19th was Lance Stroll. Probably recovered a few positions since then, especially when the DRS was active in the last sort of 10 laps of the race. There we go, Kimi Raikkonen on the podium, and that almost constitutes a smile. As far as Kimi Raikkonen's concerned, that's, yeah, he's very slightly smiling there. There's Maurizio Arriva-Bene, and yes, Kimi Raikkonen almost smiling. But there you go, there's the race results. Raikkonen and Vettel, it was staying out longer. It was the track drying out so slowly that helped Ferrari there. Max Verstappen also capitalised from that and took 3rd. Valtteri Bottas had to stop 3 times. There you saw the race result there, and here we are on the Constructors' Championship standings, and Ferrari, they're leading the Constructors' Championship by a landslide with a 1-2 finish there. Red Bull, largely thanks to Max Verstappen's podium finish, they're in 2nd place. It could have got so many more points if Ricciardo hadn't crashed with Hulkenberg. Force India, we are ahead of Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. It's short-lived, but currently Force India, we're 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes are 4th. We're miles ahead of Williams because, well, Lance Stroll, he had that collision with Van Dorn. It's also a lack of pace for Lance Stroll. Massa was certainly on it, but pitted on the intermediate tyres when I pitted onto the dries, and really that was it. To be honest, Force India, we played the strategy perfectly. Ferrari did a good strategy as well. It was just a day of strategy mishaps for the likes of Mercedes, Williams to a certain extent, and crashes. Of course, Ricciardo and Stroll losing out on a lot of points there. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do leave a like, comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time for the Chinese Grand Prix. A track with much longer straights, much less downforce is required, so it should play to our strengths. But unfortunately, with the nature of the cars, it will also play to Williams' strengths, and that's the team we've got to watch out for. Williams, and to a certain extent Renault, they're the teams we've got to watch out for. But how will it go? Well, we'll find out next time when I do the 2017 Chinese Grand Prix. So I'll see you then.